Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. So I'm back for another Roscoe's recap and this viewing party was for All Stars 9 episode 5. Today we're going to be talking about a queen who allegedly stole money from Drag Race and then never showed up, the queens reveal how production instigate drama between the queens, and how production may have inadvertently sabotaged Plastique and Roxxxy during this week's lip sync. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. And please take a moment and make sure you're subscribed to my channel because it does make a huge difference. If you don't subscribe, Tatiana would say choices, and if you do subscribe, Tatiana would say thank you. So, Vanjie was running a bit late, and Mrs. Kasha Davis said that it had been a while since she was at Roscoe's. And one of the last times that she was there, which was at DragCon for the premiere of All Stars 8, apparently Jaymes Mansfield, quote, got mad at Kasha and Kasha got in trouble. Naysha did say that she would get Kasha to tell that story later, but they never got around to it. However, at the premiere for All Stars 8, Naysha and Kasha did say that they both thought that Jaymes deserved to be in the bottom in episode 1 rather than the two that were in the bottom, and they kind of implied that Jaymes was being difficult on set. So I assume that that might be the reason why Jaymes got mad at Kasha after that Roscoe's episode came out, because of what Kasha had said about Jaymes, although this is just an assumption and has not been verified. Naysha then asked Kasha how she was enjoying All Stars 9 so far. Kasha said she liked that there were no eliminations and she loves the charity aspect of it. But she said she's having a hard time with the drama about the badges and she, quote, doesn't believe it, and that the drama, quote, seems a little forced. And Caramel said that because there are no eliminations, the show has to do something to try and create this kind of drama and tension, and Kasha agreed. And Kasha joked that, quote, not everyone is a great actor. Vanjie then arrived on stage, and Caramel asked Vanjie how she has been enjoying the season so far. Vanjie said she really likes it, and Naysha asked how different it feels between a season with eliminations and then now without eliminations. Vanjie said she liked having no eliminations, and she joked that if she had been on a previous All Stars, the queens would probably have voted her off because they think that she, quote, lives lavish. And so she's glad that she waited for this All Stars so that there's no eliminations. Vanjie also said that they were going to, quote, backdate the girls that were going to be there. And I assume that what Vanjie meant was that some of the queens on All Stars 9 were supposed to be on previous seasons, but I assume some of them turned down the opportunity because there were eliminations, although this is just a guess. Vanjie then said she wanted to set the record straight about the money that the queens got this season, and they didn't get the money until halfway through the season. Although Vanjie didn't say any actual numbers, Naysha had previously stated that the queens got a $25,000 stipend to put towards outfits, and then they got a further $50,000 as an appearance fee to be on the show. And from what Vanjie said, it sounds like the queens got the $25,000 stipend before the season, but they didn't get paid the $50,000 appearance fee until partway through filming. And Vanjie said this is because, quote, some of the girls won't show up. Naysha then spilled some tea that on her season, presumably All Stars 8, a queen got cast on the season and took the money, but then the queen just didn't show up and she, quote, stole the stipend and then ghosted the producers. Naysha then said that allegedly she got cast right after this happened, or in other words, Naysha was a replacement for the queen that ran off with the money. And at previous Roscoe's viewing parties, Naysha did say that for All Stars 8 she was cast quite late in the process and only had a few weeks to get ready compared to everyone else, so this does make sense. Naysha did not reveal the name of the queen who allegedly stole the money, but later at the viewing party, someone in the audience put forward the name of a particular queen, but Naysha said that she would not reveal who it was because it's not her place to say. There also seem to be several other queens' names that have been suggested on social media as well, but because all of this is circumstantial and not proven, I'm not going to say any of the names. They then moved on, and Caramel then read out a VIP member question for Naysha and Kasha, which was, now that All Stars 9 has no eliminations, do they regret doing All Stars 8? Naysha joked that they got, quote, gooped, bamboozled, effed, we got the bleep end of the stick. Kasha said that she would have loved no eliminations, and she loves the idea of competing for charity, but she's thankful that she had the opportunity of All Stars. Naysha agreed and said that it, quote, puts you back on rotation, and with the queens, you're on a season, you work a lot, and then the work slows down, so you go back for an All Stars and then the work picks back up again. But the problem with eliminations, according to Naysha, is not so much the show, but the fandom, because the queens get judged based on when they get eliminated, and queens who are early outs don't get followed as much on social media, which affects their careers. Naysha even shared a personal story which happened to her, which was that she contacted Murray and Peter Present, which is a large events company that does a lot of drag-based events and tours. And apparently Naysha asked if she could be part of one of their tours, and they told her that because she was a first eliminated queen on her season and she didn't have enough followers on social media, she could not be on the tour. And Naysha made the point that not following the queens on social media and judging their drag solely based on where they place in the competition is not only mean, but it also actually really affects their careers. So make sure you follow all of the queens regardless of where they ranked in the competition. They then watched the part of this week's episode where the queens had to film their own real estate commercials. Kasha made a comment about Roxxxy's so-called Tina Turner wig and said it was lovely. Naysha then asked Vanjie about the wig she was wearing and asked what she was originally going to do with that wig because it fits so perfectly with the character of this skit. Vanjie joked and said, quote, well, gag on this, that was Nina's. Everyone then laughed, and Vanjie said that she said to Nina, quote, Nina, give me one of them ugly wigs you've been wearing. Apparently, Nina said, quote, I've got just the one, and she pulled out that wig, and it seems that it was the same wig that Nina was going to wear for one of her previous lip syncs. They then talked about last week when Roxxxy and Vanjie had to snip someone. Caramel said it seemed that Roxxxy was the one who made the decision on who to snip. Vanjie said it was true, but it was a good excuse for Vanjie to get out of choosing someone because Roxxxy, quote, had unfinished business with Angeria. And because Roxxxy and Vanjie were in a team that week, Vanjie just said that Roxxxy could decide. Naysha asked Vanjie if she thought that Angeria was genuinely upset by that, and Vanjie said she thinks that Angeria was upset, quote, every time she got the scissor with me and her. Vanjie also said, quote, I ain't never been snipped yet, or ever, I don't know. And everyone laughed because it sounded like Vanjie may have accidentally given away a spoiler, although this wasn't confirmed. They then moved on to the runway this week, and the category was Day to Night Reveal, and they went through each queen's looks and whether they liked it or not. When they got to Nina, Kasha jokingly stood up and walked off stage, and everyone laughed. Kasha then came back and said, quote, it was terrible. But Kasha clarified that she is friends with Nina and she had spoken with Nina about this outfit and, quote, Nina agrees that it was not good. Kasha also said that she asked Nina if she made this outfit or did she bring it with her, and apparently Nina just said, quote, oh, you shady bee. Kasha then joked that maybe this is why she was booked at Roscoe's tonight, because both she and Nina, quote, had horrible runways. Naysha followed this up by saying that the fashion this season is on another level and that Nina's just isn't quite measuring up, and on a regular season it would be fine. But this season, other queens such as Plastique and Gottmik are just on a different level, so it's really hard to compete with that. They then moved on and talked about the fact that Vanjie and Roxxxy had a bit of drama in the workroom earlier in the episode because Roxxxy was saying that Florida isn't country like Texas is, and kind of implied that Vanjie and Angeria had copied their group in terms of doing country characters. Vanjie clarified that they were given the folders for the commercials which told them what they should do and they just had to fill in the blanks. And for the Florida one, it said that they should do country characters from the Everglades, a bit like Ginger Minj. And the folder for Texas had a similar prompt. So that's why Vanjie kind of snapped a little bit when Roxxxy accused them of copying, because actually they were both just following the brief that was given to them in the folders. But also, Vanjie knew that if they kept talking about it, the two groups would end up being compared, so that's why Vanjie was trying to avoid talking about it, but then Roxxxy brought it up again. They then watched the commercials, and Caramel said that Nina and Chanel's group, as well as Gottmik and George's group, didn't seem to get as many laughs as the other groups did, and is that how it was in person? Vanjie said that Nina and Chanel's commercial was, quote, effing long, and in person it was so much longer than what was shown in the edit, and they had to cut it down. They then moved on, and Caramel said that one of the VIP members had a question, which was, is the rumour true that Vanjie was the only contestant who didn't have a charity picked when they came to set, and the producers had to make her pick? Vanjie said that absolutely is not true, and that when they called her to ask her to be on the season, they told her that she could pick any charity, and Vanjie picked the ASPCA straight away. They then watched the judges' critiques, and Kasha said that it was a little, quote, boring that they never give negative critiques, and Kasha likes hearing the negative critiques because then they know what they need to improve. And Naysha added that there are no eliminations this season, so they could at least be honest with their critiques because it doesn't really matter. Vanjie said she was trying to remember if they did give negative critiques or not, and Vanjie said, quote, you know Michelle, as in you know what Michelle is like. But according to Vanjie, they did give some negative critiques, but they weren't that harsh and it was more just like constructive feedback. Naysha said she thinks that it was Raja that changed that on All Stars 7 because apparently Raja, quote, snapped back at Michelle after she criticised her, even though it wasn't shown in the episode. And after that, the judges were apparently more careful with what they say. They then talked about the moment when Georges got upset on the runway because she felt like she had let herself down this week. Vanjie said that there were other times that Queens cried, but for some reason they didn't show it. For example, when Gottmik gifted a badge to Vanjie last episode, Vanjie apparently cried, and RuPaul tried to help Vanjie express what she was feeling. But Vanjie was crying because she couldn't believe that even though everyone was gossiping about Gottmik and Vanjie being in an alliance, Gottmik still decided to give the badge to Vanjie. Naysha then shared that on All Stars 8, during the first episode when they had to vote for who to eliminate, Heidi and Closet was the first queen who had to go and vote. But apparently no one agreed with the bottom two that episode, and they all thought that it should have been someone else. And based on what Naysha has said previously, it's assumed that they all thought that Jaymes Mansfield should have been in the bottom that episode instead. Apparently, Heidi was so upset after voting, she came out to the tent area, which is where the queens are held before going into the workroom, and she was, quote, bawling her eyes out and threw a chair. And Heidi said, quote, why the F did I sign up to do this? This is so hard, this is stupid. I should never have agreed to do this. And Caramel noted that Heidi clearly was ready to leave from the beginning, because as we know, Heidi did end up leaving the competition a few episodes later. There was then another VIP question, which was why Vanjie dropped the Mateo part from her name and now she just goes by Vanessa Vanjie. Vanjie said it was purely because it was easier for branding and for work. But she clarified that she and Alexis Mateo are cool and there is absolutely no beef between them, and that's not the reason why she dropped Mateo from her name. They then watched the lip sync between Roxxxy and Plastique, and Caramel said in her opinion Plastique won the lip sync. Naysha said that, quote, a little birdie told her that Plastique knew absolutely none of the lyrics to the song at all. And Roxxxy also did not know all of the words, and that's why Roxxxy kept turning around, but she apparently did know more of the words than Plastique did. Vanjie then revealed that for that song, which was Super Freaky Girl by Nicki Minaj, when they got given the song on the iPod and the printed out lyrics, it was not the explicit version with all of the swear words and the N-word. But then, when the actual lip sync happened, they did use the explicit version of the song, even though that's not what the queens had originally been given. Vanjie then joked and said, quote, maybe it's good that the B didn't say any of the words, and everyone laughed. Vanjie also said that there was a bit during the song when Plastique was on the floor and Roxxxy pointed at her, and they both laughed because they knew that neither of them knew the words. Naysha said that on a regular season, both of them would have gone home because RuPaul hates it when the queens don't know the lyrics. Vanjie defended Roxxxy a bit and said that she did know some of it, but she didn't know the second verse, which was the fast bit. And the queens were all apparently listening to the song in the van, and no one really seemed to know the words because the song is very fast. Naysha also said that at one point during the lip sync, Plastique wasn't even trying to lip sync at all. And Vanjie said, quote, "at least move your mouth." And so it sounds like production may have messed up the queens a bit by using a different version of the song than the version that was originally given to the queens. Although this is just an assumption based on what was said, and it's not clear if this was on purpose or inadvertent. They then moved on to the Q&A section, and one question was for Vanjie, which is, why is her bestie Gottmik not doing the All-Stars tour? What I assume they're referring to is that there is an official All-Stars tour operated by Voss Events, and it seems that Gottmik and Nina are the only two not on the tour. Vanjie said she didn't know much, but there were, quote, a few queens who were still negotiating things about the tour, and apparently some flyers for the event had been put out before they had finished negotiating. But in terms of Gottmik, Vanjie said, quote, she might join, she might not. But the queens were all negotiating their own personal business endeavours, and there were clearly conflicts with the scheduling. Although Vanjie said it was only Gottmik who wasn't doing the tour. However, from what I can see on the Voss Events website, Nina is also not listed on the tour, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with this. And then finally, an audience member said that they worked in reality TV production for around 12 years, and on those shows, the producers would run around and say things to the contestants to stir up drama and get people to argue, and they asked if the same thing happened to the queens on Drag Race. Vanjie said that at this point, the producers can do what they want, but we all know how it works, and so, quote, if you take it, you the fool. Naysha said she understands why production does that, because you have a room full of big personalities, but some people are very quiet and, quote, squashed down and don't want to talk. Naysha gave the example that on season 8, Bob, Thorgy and Acid Betty were all big personalities and were friends from before, and they would all talk a lot. And so production had to, quote, encourage everyone else to talk. And they would go to queens such as Naysha or Layla McQueen and say, quote, we need you to talk, so that they could capture it on camera. Vanjie added that sometimes the queens might say something in the confessionals about another queen, or they might be whispering outside behind another queen's back. And then the producers would come in and ask the queens questions about it to check if the other queens had heard what they had been saying about them behind their backs. Kasha said that when she was on Drag Race, they once came over to her with a note that said, quote, do that again but make it more intense. And she also said that sometimes during lunch, producers would try and, quote, get stuff going between the queens, and it was up to you if you decided to run with it or not. Vanjie said that by now all of the queens hear the gossip and tea about what happens on set, so the queens are on guard when they're on the show now, and they're more careful about what they say. Naysha finished by saying that now on Drag Race, the producers have a banner on their phones with instructions, and they just hold up their phones, and the banners will say things like, Naysha, ask Vanjie about her father. And it's their way of not interrupting filming, but still getting the queens to ask certain questions or talk about certain topics. So there you go, there was the Roscoe's recap for All Stars 9 episode 5. Were you surprised by the outcome of this week's episode? And who do you think the frontrunner of the season is? Let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to get early access to my videos as well as have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos, please check out my Patreon and consider supporting me. It goes such a long way to helping support my channel and I really, really appreciate it. And I'll put a link to my Patreon in the description. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreon members who are amazing and support me every month. Thank you so much for being part of my Patreon. I really, really appreciate it, and I really do love my Patreon community. You are all legends. If you liked this video, please remember to like and comment on the video to help tell the algorithm that this is a great video, and make sure you hit the subscribe button because it really does make such a big difference to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!